Hello and welcome to Net That Hall. I'm of course FPL Nemo and I'm joined by my co-host at FPL Lens Gabriel. We're here just straight after the Chelsea Forest game with less than 24 hours to go till the game week 19 deadline. Very exciting times looking at Fulham and Chelsea's double game week. And I think by the end of today's conversation, Gabe, as well as looking at the matchups, I'd love to figure out our perspectives on what's the optimal number of assets we need from double game week 19. Especially considering what we just saw from Chelsea defensively against Nottingham Forest, but we'll touch on that later. So yeah, I think today's going to be a shorter show. There's not much time to digest it before deadline, so we'll still go into matchups, guys, but more from like maybe a data perspective rather than individually laser drilling into each one. And we've started starring the questions as always. So when we get to the Q&A, any questions we've not answered during the show, we will come back to. So please do leave your questions in the chat. But yeah, good to see you, Gabriel. Obviously, we're without Mariner today. And I thought we'd just give a few shout outs, say a few hellos if you want to see who's in the chat for the live stream. And then we can go straight into the philosophy, I think.
Right on. Nice to see you, Nima. It's such a quick turnaround. I feel like we've barely been apart, at least from the studio these days. It was so quick. I have one of those candles with the wood wick, and it's really loud, and I forgot to blow it out. So as the show's starting, I'm still scrambling trying to blow my candle out. So I don't know how
I did see you.
I
saw you somewhere. Like I was like, he's not in his chair as the music stopped. I was like, where's he gone?
Yeah, so just trying to curate the space here. And here we go. Yeah, we're gonna try to keep this thing to under an hour or an hour absolute top. So let's get right into it with some hellos from the chat. We have I'm seeing let me know if I miss anybody. I'm seeing myself. I'm seeing Blue Danube Joe. What's up, Joe? Natajak K, nice to see you. Daddy Bot, Prince Ohakwe. Elron Cupboard is in the house. Mike Halpin, happy New Year to you. I did get your message this morning. Thank you so much, my friend. Likewise, I'll get back to you. Neil Reynolds is here as well, joining us. Hi, Neil. Happy New Year to everybody. Device Sani. We have Carl Valencia, Robin Popplewell. Who else is in here? Ballroom Jam is here. Donny FPL. How you doing, Donny? Happy New Year. And I think that's it. So if you are joining us in the chat, how many people we got? We got 24 people in here. We got 8 likes on the stream. We haven't started the stream, so I guess that's fair. So we won't ask for likes before we start it. But if you ever find yourself smiling, like, how about just give us a like? If you smile during this stream, just like it, and that helps us out, and it tells us that you're smiling, and it gives us an incredible sense of satisfaction to begin the new year. How about that, Nima?
I think that sounds great. And I'm sure I'll have many embarrassing moments about my game week performance to make you smile. So hopefully those likes will come flying in.
Well, Device Sani just made me smile with saying that's the best any non-Indian has ever pronounced my name. So cheers to that. I do strive to pronounce names in the way I guess in the way the person's mother would pronounce their name. That's what I strive to do. So if I got anyone
new to the show, do please throw in some Spanish or Latino names if you can throughout the match. We all have a lot of Gabe fanboys who tune in just to hear your pronunciation of certain players. The one I'm thinking of that you're most well known for is the Miguel Almiron.
Oh, no, and unfortunately, Miguel Almiron will not be featured on today's show. So.
Cool. Let's go to the philosophy of the week then for game week 19. This one's from Jean-Paul Sartre.
Yes, Jean-Paul Sartre, obviously a French existentialist. The FPL philosophy for game week 19 is life begins on the other side of despair. This one's kind of broad and open. I wonder before I kind of go into my kind of soapbox here, I wonder what this would mean to you, Nima.
Yeah, I hope it's accurate because I was looking at my rank yo-yoing close to 7 digits, and I don't really quite know what lies on the other side, but I'm hoping it's not a 7-digit rank. I'm hoping I can get closer to the top 100K, which, as you know, is my annual target for the last 6 seasons. If it was very far off, I think it's nearly a good 60 points away at this stage. So double game weeks, as you know, are my favorite time of the season. So I'm hoping the despair of these kind of 18 weeks before me are now over, and really my true FPL season will begin and I'll become that butterfly. That's what I take from it.
There
It's
you,
inspiring me to better things this year for FPL at least.
I think you've harnessed the essence of this quote, and that is the essence of transformation, the papillon. The Jean-Paul Sartre would say the papillon, the butterfly transformation, right? But this quote is a little bit personal to me because of a difficult 2022, and I was just thinking, like, on the other side, what happens at despair is you have nothing left to lose. You stop thinking, you don't have distractions, you don't have anything to lose, and you just kind of like let go of everything and let things happen. And then that's when you can truly kind of imagine and create for yourself. So this is kind of inspired by a new year and that time of year where we're kind of like reimagining things in life and just looking back and reflecting on our lives. You know, something like you know, once you get to a certain point where you can let go, and then from there you can build. So yeah, knowing that people are struggling maybe from the time of season, but also certainly from FPL because of the way it's been. Hopefully, if you are despairing, this will give you some hope, even though it does feel like I don't know, pessimistic. It's not pessimistic. I see it as optimistic.
Yeah, I think definitely it's optimistic. I hope that's what people take from it in the chat, but let us know if you feel otherwise. I know that this person, this gentleman in question who the quote is from this week is a controversial figure at times, as is the case with all these philosophers. They have lots of great things to say, and some of them also have some deep facets of their ideologies or philosophical viewpoints that maybe don't sit so well with everyone. But
there are dark corners in the recesses of existentialism for sure.
Exactly, it really questions things. But I'm surprised we both came to an optimistic conclusion from this one.
Right.
But at least it's not like nihilism, I suppose. But we'll hopefully cover that on a future week.
That'll be a quote from the Big Lebowski when we cover nihilism.
I love that. So thank you to all the haulers. Thank you for becoming YouTube members and supporting the channel. As always, all the content will remain free. But if you want to help support the channel with a monthly donation, you'll get access to the kind of Discord members only server where we can release all the data a few days in advance. And obviously, there's about 30 of us in the community just chatting away and discussing our game week and having lots of fun. So we'd love to see you there. So super haulers first. Shout out to Harbour Boy, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golf, Sarah Gatsby, and FPL Robbie. And then to the haulers, Dom, Tusks, Claire, FPL DG Boy, Akshay, C Hunt, Lindsay, Devindra Raj, Fancy Football Casuals, Tom Gorosh, Blonde, S. Scott M, FPL Teacher, Oscar Arias, Donia FPL, FPL Mike Halpin, Jack Daglish, Nehal Kolkani, Kevin Rose, FPL Safa, Podna, FPL Craig, Dread FPL. And last but not least, the Patreon supporters who are listening on podcasts, Michael Winder and Lucian Gann. So thank you again, everyone. If you enjoyed the episode today, subscribe, tune in for future episodes. We'll be trying to get some guests on soon as well. So do let us know in the chat if there's any guests who you would like to see on the show from FPL Twitter. But without further ado, let's get into the show then. So we've got 36 people here live waiting to see the juicy part of this. I think we start with the two double game weekers. What do you reckon with Chelsea and Fulham's fixtures and their kind of matchups this week? And then we can take it from there.
Yeah, that sounds good. Since they have two of them, let's get one of them out of the way.
Cool. So let's start, I think, with Chelsea, because there's a lot of Kepa owners in the chat. Obviously, some people have already sold Reece James. Others are thinking of replacements and have rolled to have 2 free transfers this week. So in terms of kind of Chelsea's point of view, so one of the games is Man City, which is not ideal, but we'll discuss that. But I believe that's at home, so that is at Stamford Bridge, and then they've got Fulham away. So from an attacking point of view, the FDR against Man City is only a negative 0.4. It's not great defensively. It's a negative 2.2. In fact, that makes it kind of one of the worst defensive FDRs of the game week. When they play Fulham, though, Chelsea's FDRs are a bit more promising with a 1.7 in attack, which will put them in top 5 for the week for fixture difficulty, and -1 still for defense. So against Fulham, the defensive FDR is actually still not very good at all. So I guess just on that note, my thinking is, we started today's episode with the question of how many double game weekers do you need? What's the optimal number? I think many have maybe Kepa and Andreas. That's what I have, 2 of them. With Reece James, I thought I'd have 3. I don't anymore. And I'm now debating, is it worth getting James to another Chelsea defender from my team's point of view? just to have that double Chelsea defense going into these fixtures. These FDRs, they actually kind of worry me a little bit. And although the likes of Cucurella, Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, Aspilicueta, you could try and punt on one of those guys. I'm not convinced that that's the route I will be going. I reckon there's more upside attacking the kind of maybe the midfielders or forwards from Chelsea. So I think the likes of Mount and Havertz are the ones people I've seen talking about them. I wanted to ask you about Pulisic though, because he started the 2 games. Do we think he will start the next one? Because he's much cheaper way into the kind of Chelsea midfield slots. And as someone who also owns Phil Foden, another fire in my team, I'm wondering whether it's just worth that kind of punt on a free transfer to go for a Pulisic or a Mount, have them for the double game week, and then kind of get rid for an Arsenal midfielder or United midfielder later. So that's kind of, I guess, just to unpack that's quite a lot. I guess the first question is it worth moving James on if people haven't already to a Chelsea defender, giving these fixtures in mind? Or should they actually be going for a defender for the longer term? And equally at the same time, is there still a viability in their attackers? So for someone who already has Mitrovic, maybe they want to get rid of Martial, they want to get rid of Darwin potentially. Could Kai Havertz in the forward line or Mount and Pulisic in the midfield be options?
Let's start. I guess we'll start with the
defenders. Right? Yeah,
with the defenders. And I mean, I would say, well, if we look at the FDR here, right, we have, obviously it's not going to be a good matchup against City. So what are you expecting? Best case scenario for a defender against Manchester City? Best case scenario is probably 2 points. You're hoping it's not 1? Oh, you're muted, I believe. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was going to say, I agree. I tend to agree. I think for me, like Kepa, at least there is the save points potential. Like today, obviously they conceded. He got 3 points. You get 3 points in 2 games. That's still 6 points. So it's the equivalent of a clean sheet. With the defenders, it's just, do we think they're going to get attacking returns? And from what I've seen of Cucurella these last 2 weeks, I don't believe he's like as attacking as someone like a Reece James, who we originally had in that spot and wanted for this double. So that's why I feel a bit like it's almost, I don't know if it's worth me doing James to a Chelsea defender, because I don't think they're going to get the attacking returns. And defensively, I don't see any waste of points because obviously there's no save points for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and even the idea of the save points for Kepa, I think I'm a Kepa owner, and I don't expect anything from it. I don't expect save points either. Manchester City is actually surprisingly not getting many shots on target per 90. I think they have, let's see, Manchester City have 5 1/3 shots on target per 90, and that's like mid-table. It's like 8th best or something like that. I mean, the thing they have going for them, or the thing Kepa has going for them, is that their expected goals on target is quite low as well, per shot, and it's 0.30. It's like 0.31, right? Expected goals on target per shot, and that's also like it's like lower half. It's like 12th best. So if you think like if there are 5 shots on target on average, and Chelsea is an average matchup, let's say it's a little bit better than average, right? And you expect 6 shots on target from Manchester City. Even with that low expected goals on target, I'd expect 2 or 3 goals, right? So let's just say best case scenario is 2 goals, right?
So
2 goals, 6
times.
So it's the -1, and then it's the +1 for the save. So you end up with 2. So best case scenario, like we're looking, I think you're looking at 2 points for any of these players, and obviously like no bonus points, and this is for Kepa or for any Chelsea defender. Then now I think for the attack is a little bit different, right? Because we've seen Man City concede. Obviously they drew to Everton 1-1. So if you're looking at Chelsea attackers, like just to kind of like we'll move forward into the midfield, and then we'll move up. I refuse to talk about Havertz. But let's move to the midfield. I think the thing about Pulisic is you're dealing with Graham Potter, right? And Graham Potter, you never know where Pulisic's going to play. Is he going to play wing back? Is he going to play that inside forward? Is he going to play the inside left forward where he's like kind of like driving? Is he going to play the inside right forward? Like I'm not really sure what he's going to do, right? So the only player I'm really kind of sure of is Sterling. But Sterling's at that awkward price point that is difficult for most people to get to Sterling, right? So like,
because he was the one that I think when we did the show before Gameweek 16, we said that Zoff from The Wire, he'd said as a Chelsea fan, he'd pick Sterling if he had a gun to his head and had to pick one of the Chelsea attackers. he is a bit harder to get to, as you say, though, which is
Yeah.
concerning. What are your thoughts on Mount? Because he has like 3 returns this season. Obviously, one of them was recently, so it's fresh in the mind. Chelsea haven't been creating much at all. We know Potter doesn't seem to know his best team, and he's been played with injuries. So obviously, like, you know, they're very fullback reliant, and for their chance creation point of view, at least anyway. And both James and Chilwell, they've only played 2 games together this season. They've started, so it kind of I think that kind of emphasizes their position right now as well, that they've not had the opportunity to play their most creative fullbacks all season together. Do we go for a Mount despite everything in the numbers imploring us that like he isn't getting points and Chelsea aren't creating attack? Or is it just because it's a double game week, we just take that punt and pray? Like, is it? And that comes back to the first question of the episode, which is, if I go into this game week with just, say, Kepa and Andreas, is that really enough? Or do I need like a third player? And is that going to be Mount? Is that potentially going to be someone I get? Because like, I don't see any reason to get Mount from a statistical point of view. So no, yeah, like it would just be a pure punt from my, like, I honestly don't see anything statistically shouting out that Mount or Chelsea have been creating loads and Mount is going to go and score like a brace in these games.
I think Mount is somebody you settle on given your situation. So, for example, you have Kulusevski, you only have 1 free transfer, and you don't have money in the bank, and the rest of your team is good. Then you can go, you know, Kulusevski to Mount or something like that for the double, and then go Mount somewhere else, like as part of a broader plan. So that's kind of like the only way I would go in on Chelsea for this double game week is as part of a broader kind of hokey cokey plan where the Chelsea assets come in, and there's a plan for those Chelsea assets to go out to players like you know, with doubles in the future or better fixtures or something like that.
Yep. Okay. And I think on Havertz, I know you don't want to discuss him, but I guess the best way to describe it is in my situation where I want to get rid of one of Martial or maybe Darwin, probably Martial though. That's the only reason Havertz came into my thought. And at the same time, I'm kind of like below to do that because I don't own Mitrovic. So it's kind of like, if I'm really going to get a forward, like surely it's going to be Mitrovic, and he's the one that people are saying is a captaincy contender. So we'll see on the captaincy metric later how it does. I've not looked at it just to keep myself as a surprise, so Mariner can surprise me too. But I'd like to think Mitrovic is quite high up in that metric, in the captaincy metric. So I think maybe I'm landing on a kind of Mitrovic and Mount move. But I'm a bit below to sell Foden, as people in the chat have mentioned. Like, has Pep been resting Cancelo, Foden, and the likes for these tougher fixtures? I don't know. Saying that, Foden's only started like 1 in the last 5 or 6 league games. So at what point do you just think, you know what, yes, there's double game weeks coming for City potentially in 20 and then also guaranteed in 23, but do I really want this player that is getting me 1 point every week and might get a brace on a random week, but he's not a nailed starter? Like Mount, at least I know will play, and I get the Fulham fixture out of it as well, not just the Chelsea City fixture.
I mean, that's the best thing you can say about Mount is I guess I know he'll play.
Famous last words. This is going to be clipped. Right. I think
that's not a very fun way to play games. Like, I got this player because I guess I know he'll play.
I guess it's the money side as well. So what I should say is I can't afford to go Martial to Mitrovic, and with Foden being about 8.2 million and Mount being just 7.5, it kind of allows me without any hits to bring in Mitrovic and then have a Chelsea attacker. So suddenly I have 4 double game weekers. 3 attackers, 1 goalkeeper, and I feel like 4 people, I would feel pretty comfortable. That would be where I'm at this point in the episode. 4 doublers.
I think that just feels like being a little bit myopic towards the double game week, where you're going in all in with 4 double game week players from a team.
2 of them I already have, right? Like in Kepa and Andreas, like they're not going anywhere.
Right.
But it's whether I prioritize these. Yeah. So like,
to go
let's
in
say
that,
I sell Foden and then Foden starts starting again, and actually he does way better than Mount because obviously City are going to create more.
The thing is, you have 3 issues, right? You have Foden, you have Darwin, and you have Martial.
Well, no, I have James as well, but I'm choosing. I've not mentioned it deliberately. Yeah.
So I think this is what you need to think about is what are the issues on your team, not how do I maximize this double? If you have 4 issues on your team, I think you need to fix your team for the long term and have a broader plan instead of trying to pack doubles in from teams that are, well, one team that is shit, that one top 6 team that is shit and one mid-table team that is decent in Fulham. So I don't know. Yeah, like don't pack them in. I think just have a broader lens on your team and play the long game. Play the other doubles coming up, the Brighton doubles, the City doubles, and stuff like that. I think.
Yeah. So I had seen some people saying they were considering just using one of their 2 free transfers this week. So if they can fund like a Martial to Mitrovic move in one go, they want to do that and then roll the transfer to have 2 of them again in 20. Once we've seen the results of the FA Cup, once we know what's happening with future doubles, we'll know whether teams like, Arsenal, Everton, Brighton might get a double game week 21. We'll know whether the City Spurs double in 20 is actually happening. So that's kind of one of the reasons I'm also looking. I've got Cancelo. I'm not going to sell him because in my mind, I'm just like, what's the point? Like, imagine I sell him and now he's back to being nailed and he has 2 doubles in the next 3 weeks. Like, so I don't want to do that. I don't need the money. So it just feels like my kind of big decision is I do want Mitrovic. And what I can't decide, and I'm hoping when we look at the FDRs for both Fulham in a moment and Liverpool is, is it Darwin or is it Martial that I'm selling to get to Mitrovic? Because if I did Darwin straight to Mitrovic, I can use 1 free transfer and then not worry about getting like a 4th double game weaker and keep that transfer for the knowledge of what happens after the cup games and other doubles that are coming. So that feels like a better long-term move for me. I think I'm so far behind in rank that I'm just trying to get as many extra, games out of my team as I can in the short term, but it's not going to necessarily benefit me long-term.
It's because you want to feel good right now. That's that's quite simple, I think. So yeah, like just to summarize, Chelsea, if you have some luxury transfers, I think they're definitely worth going for. Cancelo is an interesting one. I don't know if you want to kind of just go right into.
Yeah, let's go to City. Yeah, let's talk about City and maybe Cancelo first.
Yeah, so just to go right into that, I did. So if we don't get to your question in our discussion here, we are starring them, and we will come back to them at the end of the show. But just as we're going into Cancelo, NetxG comes up with Cancelo. Should we consider him an issue? It's and I think Cancelo is a tough one because. So yesterday, right? I could have sold Cancelo and Greenwood for Botman and Mitrovic, but I was having New Year's with my kids, so I didn't do anything. And then come today, I'm 0.2 million short. But that makes me kind of like that felt like an automatic. They're like really easy to do. But if I'm 2 million short. So I'm thinking maybe I keep Cancelo. Like Cancelo didn't. I don't think Cancelo has a case of the Fodens. I don't think he's suddenly been benched. I think Cancelo has been given some rest. I think some players have been given more of an opportunity. But Cancelo is one of the creative hubs of the team. And he'll be back. So especially at away to Chelsea, I think Cancelo is. It's fine to hold him, especially now since I can't do that obvious transfer. I would have to settle for Bueno or something like that. I'll probably just hold Cancelo.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, so especially if like most people, or me at least, I have James and Cancelo. If I'm going to be selling a defender, it's going to be James. I think part of the reason I don't want to sell Cancelo is that I don't have any need for that money. Like your move sounded like a no-brainer, I think, to Botman when it wasn't being priced out. That felt like a viable big upside. For me right now, like I just need like 0.2, 0.3 million to get to Mitrovic from Martial, or I don't need anything to get from Darwin to Mitrovic. So it's kind of like, why? Like, what am I going to? I'm not going to use 2 transfers on both James and Cancelo and then forget the double game week as an attack. I only have Andreas in attack, so I really want Mitrovic. I think he's going to be massively owned and captained as well. Haaland could potentially still be the best captaincy choice. That doesn't, obviously that goes without saying, but we know what double game week fever is like. I can't resist getting his yellow card in the first game and getting banned for the second game while I captain him. I'm going to curse him as quickly as I can. Cool. So in terms of, I guess, just Cancelo, people talked about Walker covering him. That's obviously not gone so well either so far. What do you make of Pep's quotes? What do you make of Pep's quotes? So Pep obviously said something quite interesting. He said that about Rico Lewis specifically. He kind of said, when you've got a player who wants to come in and like wants to win and wants to get their first Premier League, they're going to be hungrier and it's better for my team than if I've got players who've won the Premier League multiple times and, you know, like they're not as hungry, basically, is what he implied. So that makes me think I need to watch those team sheets a bit more because, you know, what is he saying? Because Cancelo got dropped for the last 2 games for Portugal at the tournament. Now he's not started these 2 games. It could just be rest. Maybe he's not mentally 100% after being knocked out of the tournament. Maybe, you know, it impacts every player differently, right? So maybe he's still a bit upset about that. Maybe he's not in the right headspace. Equally, is it that some of these other players who haven't won the Premier League before for City, they're actually showing more in training? They want it more. And the people who've won, they kind of like last season, right? People were saying Mane wants to go to Bayern for a new challenge. He's won the league. He's won the Champions League. He's done everything he can at Liverpool, and now he wants a new challenge. So could it be the case that something like that might be happening to some of these City players that we're not obviously privy to behind the scenes, and why we find it so surprising to see some of these nailed starters of most previous seasons just suddenly not playing at all?
I mean, not just previous seasons, of this season, nailed starters of this season that are playing at all, and that's, I think that's the most surprising thing. On the Foden thing, I don't know. I have to say, Foden hasn't been a starter for quite some time. We learned this lesson kind of before the restart. So I mean, going with Foden was a huge risk because he wasn't starting, and that was just kind of an assumption. So, but Cancelo is a big surprise, obviously. We'd expect him to come back at least now. Maybe he's being rested for Chelsea. You know,
and I guess they have the tough cup game as well, right? They play Chelsea twice, and they've got to play Arsenal relatively soon. They've got to play United. They've got to play Tottenham twice in the league. Like, I think that's something we were discussing, that their fixtures, like, they are, I think they're quite tough. They do have some good home fixtures. So they have in the next kind of 7, I think it is, they have Wolves at home in Gameweek 21, Villa at home in 23 as part of the double with Arsenal away. But aside from that, their fixtures are Chelsea away, United away, Tottenham home, Tottenham away, Arsenal away in the next 7. 5 of those 7, from a clean sheet point of view anyway, from what you said earlier, they don't sound that great to me. So although I'm not selling Cancelo yet, should City not get a double game week in 20 because of what happens in the Cup, I could be very tempted to move him on around game week 20 and free up funds for another move to get like another Arsenal attacker, I think.
Either that or switch your City structure. So, you know, I kind of feel like I still want 3 City and I want 3 Arsenal. I mean, these are the top 2 teams, and it's not close really. But I'm interested in, because Mahrez is like playing if you have your right boot and it's full of cement, that's Mahrez, and that's how City's playing right now, right? He's mud out there. He slows everything down. He's not as creative as he used to be. He's always been pretty predictable, to be fair. But and I think Julian Alvarez could come and completely transform City, because he naturally plays on that right side. He's full of confidence after that cup, after showing the medal to all the fans and all of that, right? I mean, it would make so much sense for Pep to just throw him in there on the right-hand side as the nailed starter. And if he does, then switching that, you know, move the Cancelo money to Julian Alvarez as your third forward.
So you're looking to maybe keep that slot open and keep an eye on it.
Yeah, so keeping Cancelo would fund that, and that's why I also want to keep one transfer available. So it's going to be it's going to be like how I get there. I'd have to sell kind of another premium asset or something like that to get a Chelsea asset or a double or a Mitrovic. But yeah, I think if you're moving Cancelo, it should be for a structure change, and I think we're starting to see that. Maybe Ederson wasn't. If you did go with Ederson, that I'm not sure yet. You know, it's been two games, but maybe that wasn't the best way to go.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think let's just quickly look at Fulham's FDR, and then we'll look at some of the other teams. So Fulham, obviously, they play Leicester away in the first game in the double game week. Then they play Chelsea at home. So they've got a minus 1.3 FTR in the first game for attack and a minus 1.2 for defense. They've actually got a much better attacking FDR of 1 against Chelsea, and then minus 1.7 again defensively. So I think that kind of puts to bed for me the idea of James to like a Ream or some other Fulham defender. Like, I'm not looking for a Fulham defender for a double. No chance. Attacking point of view, it's interesting because a lot of people said they wouldn't mind like Mitrovic getting the yellow against Leicester because they see Chelsea as the harder game. The data would seem to suggest otherwise, actually. So 2.3 swing in attacking FDR in favor of the game against Chelsea, not the one against Leicester. What are your thoughts on that? Is that perhaps just too weighted on the last 6 fixtures for Chelsea? And do we think that things can get better for them, or is it actually the injury crisis at fullback is still a massive issue for them?
Yeah, I think it's still, I mean, there are so many things that are still massive issues for them. They still don't have a goal scorer, despite what Havertz did last game week. I don't know if you saw Sterling's goal today. He had given up on the play. He was waving it off. He's in the middle of waving, and the thing comes back to him. He's like, "Oh, I'll just put this over there. I guess that's what I'm supposed to do." It's just such a funny goal.
They didn't look like they were going in for the kill when I was watching. It very much felt like they were trying to coast their way to 1-0 victory, but they weren't really doing enough to look assured in the 1-0 victory. I think when the subs were made, like Gallagher came on and Ziyech and stuff, they did start to turn it up a bit, but it was almost like, why weren't they trying to go for that second when they were 1-0 up? And I think that kind of caught me by surprise, and is part of what worries me about getting Mount in, because I had him at the start of the season too, and I hate going back for players that have let me down once when I have a gut feeling like that. The only reason I'm buying them is for structure.
Yeah. But, I mean, so yeah, I think there are bigger issues at Chelsea, and investment in them would need to come with a plan for investment out of them as well. Fulham, I don't know if if we look at Fulham in like the NetxG doesn't agree with the FDR, right? Look at Fulham FDR minus 1.3 against Leicester and +1 against Chelsea, as you said, that incredible spread there. And then it is because it's not like that it's weighted too much on the last 6. It's that Leicester are different, and different players have been playing better, including Danny Ward. But more importantly, who's Sumare? That's the defensive midfielder? I think that's the name. I don't remember right now. But he's been playing really well, and that's been helpful in the transformation of Leicester. But NetxG doesn't agree. If you look at NetxG for Fulham here, it's 1.58 away to Leicester, which is quite decent. And soon here we can get to the shots models to see what the goal predictors are like. And then Fulham home to Chelsea is 1.22. So you're looking at maybe 2 or 3 goals from Fulham in this double. And if out of 2 or 3 goals, you would think that Mitrovic gets something. He gets, 2 appearance, 4 appearance points, and then 1 goal on the low end, and no assists or bonus points. That's 10 points in a double. That's pretty decent, and that's probably the floor for Mitrovic, which makes him extremely appealing, even if you have to kind of bend over backwards to get him, because he's a good long-term pick, whereas the Chelsea assets are not, because they're not good value.
Yeah, I guess just what's interesting as well is I would actually, even for my Fulham pick, he would also be someone who I want to have an exit plan for. So I'm not that wedded to keeping him for the kind of 20 to 25 period. I know he's talismanic and stuff, and Fulham at home especially, they create, just over 1 XG per game. So, and he's central to that. But overall, I'm keen to keep an eye out on Alvarez, as you said. If he starts to nail down a spot, I think that could be an exit route from Mitrovic after the double for me. And I'm also quite interested in Eddie Nketiah, depending on whether I try to get to kind of Odegaard or Saka as a second Arsenal attacker. But I definitely want 2 Arsenal attackers, and very soon. So I feel almost in a way that this double game week is preventing me getting the players I actually want, because ideally I would be getting someone like Saka now for Foden. I wouldn't be going for a Mount. I would just be going straight to the player I want longer term. And that's why I kind of wanted to start today's episode asking what's the optimal number at double game week, is because it just feels like I'm prioritizing short-term moves at the moment for a little bit of gain, but they're going to be future transfers out or hits.
I would put the over-under at 2. Under, 1 is too few. 2 is fine. 3 is
probably
good.
More than most people.
And 4 is maybe too much. I don't know.
Okay.
A bell curve around that, or something like that, or
Yeah, I think I'd agree, because the 3, if you want to kind of, I guess, stick with the masses at least, would probably be the likes of Kepa, Andreas, and then one of Mitrovic or Mount. So that would kind of be the 3. I think having the 4 might be a little bit much. I'm potentially going to bench someone like Almiron away at Arsenal to play Andreas over 2 fixtures. But there's no guarantee that Almiron won't just outscore the double game weekers on his own. So that's the other thing. You got to look at kind of there. We look at upside just based on the transfer we're making out of our team. But like this week, I didn't sell James. I was happy to start White. Obviously, I got 1 point for it. But other people had Bueno come on for James, for example. They got 6 points. So it's kind of like sometimes if you can get away with not making the transfer because you have a a feeling that your bench player can get the points, then I think the value of having that transfer in a future week is much more. But I'm quite a patient and slow manager, as you know. I try to roll nearly every single week. So that kind of says how much I believe in my squad that underperforms on a regular basis. I think it's fool's errand for me. But yeah, no, I guess the next question I'd love to look at is so then United's FDR, I think, against Bournemouth, and also Liverpool's FDR, against Brentford, just because I think most teams have Darwin and Martial potentially, and I'm currently figuring out which of those two I need to sell by tomorrow in less than 24 hours when the deadline is to get to Mitrovic, because I think I'm pretty sold on Mitrovic. Like I'm going to go there, but it's just who am I selling? So do you want to lead with Liverpool and then I'll take the United one maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at both. I mean, Liverpool, we're looking at 1.8 NetxG, right, for Liverpool away to Brentford. And then the FDR for Liverpool is 0.9 away to Brentford, and that's probably a function of home away, where Brentford obviously plays much better at home. So I would probably split the difference there, like I don't know, 1 or 2 goals for Liverpool wouldn't surprise me. I don't see them really being held to 1 goal, to be honest, against Brentford. But they're so close. Like the data is so close, at least as far as NetxG is concerned. Mariners data is a little different, but to continue there on Liverpool, oh, we don't have the zonal matchups up yet. We can look
I
at
can put them up.
Maybe let's like toggle to the zonal matchups and the shop predictors. Here are the zonals for Liverpool. So strong left 4.7, strong central 5.2, and then decent right with 3.7 for zonal matchups for Liverpool. We talked last week about how Darwin pulls left, and that brings Salah into the center. So Salah's not really playing. I mean, he will receive long balls, those long diagonal balls on the right hand side. He's still receiving those, but most of his play and his involvement, at least in the chance creation, is while he's in a central position and Darwin is in that left side, and that's why we see it tilted so far to that side. What I will say is Brentford are quite vulnerable from that position. I wrote about in matchups a couple of weeks ago when they faced Tottenham that I think Højbjerg lobbed the ball into Kane and he headed it far post. I think Gabriel Jesus did the same thing on a ball from Xhaka when Arsenal played Brentford. So they're susceptible to creativity from the left, from their own right half space. Brentford is. So if we're looking, so let me get back to there. It is. So that's kind of the space where Darwin pulls. Now, if Darwin is able to send balls in there, I think it's more of a game for Robertson. I think this is a really nice matchup for Andy Robertson against Brentford. And honestly, you have to give something to Salah, but Salah doesn't have that game. He doesn't have like the fadeaway header, right? Goal. That's not what he does. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect from Salah.
I guess from a central point of view, zonally, and on the left, it's pretty good for Darwin. And just in terms of himself, he has an extortionate amount of big chances and XG over not just the last 2, but whenever he's played this season. And although Martial scored in the first game and got subbed early to rest him to start the next game, he did look very kind of out of the game last fixture. I didn't seem to notice many moments where Martial did a great job. Equally, though, we had Darwin in the first game. He had 4 big chances and 4 accurate passes. It's not often you see someone make the same number of accurate passes as they have big chances in a match. Like they're both frustrating players, but surely I want to back the player from the team that's creating a lot more and the player with elite positioning who maybe needs 6 big chances to score, but he's going to be in and around those chances. But then Martial against Bournemouth at home, that feels like a better fixture. So I think that's where I'm kind of stuck. Martial seems like he's going to get less minutes, though. That's one thing I would say. So I think he's the only kind of nailed fit striker at the moment. They've not replaced Ronaldo, obviously. Sancho's still not back. You know, Rashford could play through the middle, but like generally he's not going to. So I feel like Martial's going to be protected quite a lot. And we know he has a history of kind of injuries and recurring injuries. He seems fit and fine now. But the fact that he got subbed, you know, in 60 minutes in the first game just to protect him for the next start, that kind of does worry me going forward. So I think even if I kept Martial this week and didn't use him to get to Mitrovic and went the Darwin route, I don't see Martial as a long-term hold in my team. I think I need to get out of there regardless. Whereas with Darwin, I'm willing to give him some chances. And yes, Liverpool have some tough opponents coming up, but those tough opponents, maybe Liverpool will play better against them, right? Like Liverpool beat City, you know, but then they were dropping points to the kind of mid-table team. So yeah, I think if I was going to do something with the money is the conclusion from Darwin this week. If I went Darwin straight to Mitrovic and I was going to use like that 2-3 million to do something exciting elsewhere, like go from Foden to Sterling instead of Mount, then so that's kind of where I'm at. It's like if I'm going to go for like a Sterling punt, then yeah, sure, I'll sell Darwin now. But equally, we're not very happy with the Chelsea FTR attacking wise. So
you mean like Darwin to Sterling, Foden to, or Darwin to Mitrovic, Foden to Sterling?
Yeah, instead of Foden to Mount and Martial to Mitrovic, for example. It would get me to the full double game weekers that we're saying is overkill. But as you can see, my heart is very, very set on full double game weekers. I might go down to 3 though.
But in that case, I think only one of them doesn't make sense, and that's Sterling, because just the value long term doesn't make sense. But I think Mitrovic still at 7.1 provides good value long term. Andreas is obviously good value long term, and Kepa you're not moving. So I think in that situation where you have it where 2 of your 3 are a goalkeeper and basically a free midfielder,
like a benched midfielder,
4.5 midfielder, then it's fine. Then it's fine to go in on 4, because then your next one is Mitrovic, who's objectively just a great asset, right?
And Sterling
then it's just one punt. It's one punt.
Yeah, like Sterling or Mount, whoever it ends up being, they will go. And I don't currently have Rashford, so it will probably be for Rashford. And if it's not, it will be for Odegaard or Saka. So it's like it's either a United mid or an Arsenal mid. Let's see who gets double game week, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's the thinking. Yeah. So it's just like I want to be aggressive with someone, and Sterling just excites me a bit more than Mount.
Yeah, can we move to the goal predictors just really quickly?
Let's go to the goal
just kind of like put a bow on this talk before we get to some of the other fixtures.
Yeah, and then we'll talk about some of the other teams that have like the single game weeks and are not exit points like Liverpool and United. They Martial especially. I think a lot of people don't really want to keep him long term.
He's hard to keep. I can sympathize. So there's a lot of information on the screen for those of you listening on the podcast. Do come check this out on our YouTube channel. Just as a comparison, on the left here we have the shots model goal predictor, and on the right we have the shots on target model goal predictor. So if you see, for example, let's look at Aston Villa, where the left is kind of red or pink, and then on the right it's kind of green. That means they don't create many, they don't have many shots, or they don't have much XG per shot, but their shots on target are a lot more dangerous. So if you see like red on the left and green on the right, it's like, okay, it doesn't look like they do very much when you're watching the game. Like they don't look very dangerous, but when they are dangerous, they convert a lot, or they're really dangerous. And if you look like by contrast, let's see who's and then I guess vice versa, it would be kind of the same thing, but I don't know. I don't see any examples of that right now. So just to look at Fulham, I mean especially look at Fulham's shots on target model on the left hand side. So only 11% chance of 0 goals, which is second lowest, only to Arsenal, right? And tied with Newcastle, interestingly. 64% chance of 1 or 2 goals for Fulham, and that's only against Leicester. 64% chance of 1 or 2 goals, and they have a 25% chance of 3 or more goals against Leicester. Like that just really, it's a strong case for Mitrovic from that perspective. And then that's not even adding the double against Chelsea, which which isn't too bad. If we look, just to kind of like look at Chelsea, because I don't have the double up here. But you know, Forest scored on Chelsea. We know Chelsea's defense have not kept many clean sheets, and so it's going to be pretty similar numbers against Chelsea as well. So I think there's a stronger case for Fulham doublers than there is for Chelsea doublers.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I think some people might have decided that they don't like the formation they went into this kind of restart with. Maybe they went for a 3-5-2. They have that kind of 4.2 million forward. They don't have Andreas. And perhaps they want to do like a Foden to Andreas and upgrade that third, forward into Mitrovic. And I did see many teams, in fact, with no Fulham attackers, neither Andreas or Mitrovic in the restart. So that could be a fault for some teams as well, where there isn't other fires to put up. Who else here, I guess, while we're on the shots models, which other teams kind of scream out to you for like the best chance of maybe 2 or 3 goals this week?
I mean, the solid green, obviously Arsenal against Newcastle. I think that's one of the more interesting matchups, just from a talent perspective and a tactics perspective. I think it's Arsenal, who have moved from a team that's in the top 4, top 6 conversation to solid top 2 title contender, and Newcastle, who have moved from a mid to low table team to a solid top 4 conversation team. I think that's one of the really interesting ones. We see Arsenal with on the shots target model predictor, we see 29% chance of 2 goals is quite good. If we look at the 1 or 2 goals, we're looking at 56% chance of 1 or 2 goals, with a 31% chance of 3 or more goals. So that looks quite strong. Newcastle do have a tendency to open up when they hit too hard, right? When they send in Longstaff and they send in Bruno Guimaraes and stuff, and I could see Arsenal capitalizing kind of like right through the middle on them. So I could see that happening. I mean, Arsenal assets they're just easy.
I think just on the zonals, then I'm just looking here for Arsenal as well. So there's not too much to write home about. Martinelli on the left is only a 2.4, but I guess 3.3 for the center for Eddie and Odegaard, who we said drifts into that space, as well as Xhaka. And then on the right, we've got 3.7 for Saka. So that's clearly the best side zonally. Longer term, though, the center and the right for Arsenal look very great. And I think in future episodes, we'll probably want to discuss like who would be the ideal third Arsenal asset ahead of their double game week. But I think that's a debate for a different day. But any quick thoughts on it while we're here on this matchup?
A quick question for you, actually. Rank the top 5 Arsenal assets.
Yeah, that's
considering
a good
question, value,
yeah.
Considering everything, the ones you want, the top 5.
Yeah, I think for me it would be considering value and stuff. I think I have to still go Martinelli regardless of the zonals. I think for me that's just
as long as you got him at 6.0.
Yeah, at 6.0. I don't know about 7 million almost now, but at 6.0, I think that's pretty good value. So 6.0 Martinelli, if you got him at the start, I think he's just there. And then obviously there's 4 spots I'm going to give you now, but only 2 places. So it's a bit tough to put them in an order. But the 4 would probably be Saka, Odegaard. If you were going to play them every week, Gabriel. If you're not going to play them every week, I think Ben White. I only want them to take up 1 spot because I don't think more than 1 defender makes it into my top 5. Like I'm tempted by like a triple attack if you really want to go rogue. So even the defender is a debate, I think. But yeah, so I think it's really those guys. It's kind of, Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, one of the 2 defenders, Gabriel or White. And then for the 5th slot, this is where it gets interesting because I'd say it's probably between the likes of Eddie and Xhaka. Just because Xhaka is very cheap. He's about 5 million. And Eddie is 1.5 million cheaper than obviously Saka. And if you don't want 2 Arsenal mids, because there's lots of other great mids, I think Eddie, 2 goals in 2, what more can you ask for? I made a claim before the restart that I thought people were being very harsh on him. I said that I believe in 14 games, he will outscore Jesus' 5-goal tally in 14 games. He's already, got 2 of the 5 goals Jesus did. I think I said it before, goal scoring is not Eddie's problem. It's all the other stuff that Jesus does that there's a bit of a drop off. But goal scoring, I back Eddie. And I'm sure you saw that goal he scored in the first game with the turn, and he had one arm up to check the defender's position. Then he put his other arm up to check the defender's position, and then he just turned, and it looked like he sent him for a hot dog. That finish, I was like, like this guy has very rarely played senior level football in the Prem as a starter, and when he does, he scores. So I think he's someone I'm still very excited by, and I really like as an option if you don't want to go deep into the midfield slots. Yeah,
I mean, I have to say, Eddie Nketiah has been. I mean, he's not hauling, he's not scoring crazy points, but he's been one of my favorite picks since starting up again. Just because, and that turn is one of the reasons why. Like that turn showed me he's become a Premier League player. That turn really showed it to me, just because of the strong hips, and I think he's gone through a similar transformation Saka has gone through. When Saka was a little bit more slight, and he could get like hip checked off the ball quite easily. He'd get hurt often.
He's a lot more physical now. Yeah, like he feels strong now when you look at Saka.
He'll invite the contact. He does not care, and I feel like Eddie is the same way. Right now, Eddie's the same way, and I think that's he's just a really good player, and I think the faith that Arsenal have shown in him is quite commendable, while he's been criticized by others. So I don't know. I'm a big fan. I'm happy to own him, and with these emerging assets, I might be having to sell him for the likes of Mitrovic, for Julian Alvarez, for whomever that's coming up. I do want to mention a shout out to Catherine. We have a new member, became a YouTube member, so thank you very much, Catherine A. Much appreciated. Happy New Year. Well, first one of the new year, first one of 2023. So thank
you for the support, and let us know on Twitter DMs if you get stuck trying to join the Discord. But you just need to go to user settings and then connections and log in with your YouTube account into discord.com. So that should automatically drop you into the community. Cool. Okay, so I think Arsenal Newcastle, like, I'm very excited by that. I think the fact that it's at home, that gives me a lot of hope. I feel like the Emirates has become a bit more of a fortress. I'd like to think we can capitalize on that fixture there before going into the North London derby. So there's some tough ties about to come up after this. So I think Newcastle will be a real test, especially after what happened at their stadium in the second to last game of last season, which completely ended any hope of top four. So cool. Okay, so we're at 52 minutes. I think we want to get to the captaincy soon. So let's kind of prioritize a few fixtures here. I think the ones that we've not looked at that could be interesting. So Spurs Palace, I think, is worth a touch on, just because Spurs could still have that double game week in 20, albeit not a very good one in terms of the opponents. Equally, I think the other teams we maybe could look at is just in terms of ones people might get assets from. So we talked about United, but I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are if they got a double in 20, because that's a possibility, or between 21, 22. Someone like me who's got James, part of my thinking is, could I get Luke Shaw? So do I just wait? Do I play like a Ben White this week and just wait and then see if I want to get like Luke Shaw should a double get announced? I think I wouldn't go for Luke Shaw this week is what I'm getting at, even though it's Bournemouth, just because I want to go for double game weekers and I'd rather be looking at like Mitrovic. But there is an option there. Like I could always do that. But what are your thoughts on those guys? So is it still okay to invest in United defense? I guess I'll put up their FDRs for the long term as well here. So you've got their FDR here on the screen for the next 5 weeks from 20 to 25 as well.
Yeah, and let's see what the FDR says. 7.3 for attack, 4.9 for defense. Not great, right? It's kind of like I don't know, ranked like a little bit above mid-table there. So I don't, got the wrong one. I'm looking at Arsenal. Minus 2.3 for defense, and that's basically because they have City and Arsenal in 20 and 21. So that's knocking them down there. So I guess if you have a cheap enough asset where you can bench them and you have a good rotation, it's fine. I don't think it's a team that we're really looking to invest in defense. Certainly not in the face of the doubles in front of us.
We might have missed some of those points. I guess if you got Shaw in the restart and you started him, like some people went for Shaw instead of Cancelo. They got Edison and Shaw, right? And I think those guys are the winners there, 9 points and 8 points. I think it's a bit like chasing points if I go for Shaw now, unless a double gets announced.
Yeah, I think so too, because even after that, they have Leeds away in 23, which isn't a likely clean sheet. Then they have Leicester, who you never know what, Leicester often come up with a goal. Brentford, Liverpool, like, so the kind of long-term defensively, I really don't like them. Offensively is a little bit different. So, everyone's talking like for Manchester United, is Rashford inevitable now? Like who are you selling to bring Rashford in? Are you going to bring Rashford in the face of City and Arsenal? I don't think so, right?
That's the thing. I'm looking to sell Martial even with the Bournemouth fixture because of the 2 after it and because I need Mitrovic. I want to give Darwin a bit more time. Rashford, I really regret not having him. So one of my formations could have been like a 3-5-2 where I had Rashford instead of Andreas or something. No Martial. It looks like I'm going to be trying to move to that kind of route. So I think once Andreas's double game week is done, that's one of the things I'm looking at is, can I get Andreas up to Rashford and make my third striker a dead spot? So I'm looking at that. That's an option there. But I really want Rashford. The problem is I want a premium mid. So let's say that's Salah or KDB. That's one slot. I've then got like Almiron finally at this point. I've got Martinelli, who I say I don't want to move. I want another Arsenal attacker. Don't know who. And then like Andreas is there taking up a spot 2 at the moment. And I'm not playing him most weeks apart from the double. So it's like there's more value in, like, I feel like Rashford at his price, I see better value there than in like having someone like Martial or Eddie maybe.
And that's why I went with the 3-5-2 formation. But now, you can't sell Andreas obviously going into the double. So and are you going to buy Rashford in the face of those fixtures?
Probably
it does feel like points chasing. It does. Yeah, you have to find find the next source of points. Don't
like there will come a time I want him. Like say he gets a double in 20, then yeah, like I'll try to get there quickly. So if I did get like a Mount or a Sterling, I would be exiting straight after the double to the United mid there, and then they would be my way out. The problem is, what do you think about like Ten Hag? He said that he sees Rashford as someone who can get 20 Premier League goals in a season, and he's looking a lot better. He's looked, sharp for the first time in like the 18 months since his injury. He was looking pretty average, I would say, compared to like how he started out his career. He then obviously had a great start to the season. He got called up to the World Cup squad. He looked great when he subbed in. He's looked great again. He got disciplined for oversleeping, as he said, came on at halftime, scored the winner. It's like, I do feel he's inevitable. It's just not in the face of this double and then City and Arsenal, especially if he doesn't get a double in that period. So I feel like it's a wait and see with him if you don't already have him. But for those who have him, he would not be going anywhere anytime soon from my team.
That kind of feels like the theme, right? Of like there are so many players who are, well, now they're wait and see. Don't bend over backwards to do this. Don't bend over backwards to sell Cancelo. You don't have to jump through hoops. Even to buy Mitrovic with that high upside. All the superlatives that we've said about Mitrovic and Fulham's fixtures and all that. He gets a yellow card in that first match and doesn't get a return. You're fucked, right? So
yeah, especially if you captained him against Haaland's ownership.
Yeah,
that is a worry. There is a world in which you could keep both Darwin and Martial and just be like, I'm just not going to go Mitrovic and pray Andreas gets more points, or that like Mitro does get banned and then Andreas gets a penalty in the second game after Mitro's banned or something like that. So there are obviously, at the moment, Mitrovic was quite low owned going into the last game week. I think that will change, but it won't be as high as we think it's going to be. I'm not sure that, like everyone's going to be flocking to him. Like people normally go for the player who got points the last week, especially from like the casuals perspective, who maybe aren't looking into the fact that he has 4 yellow cards, etc. But with his 0 point return because of the missed penalty, he's not necessarily someone who, right now there's 260,000 people have brought him in. The deadline's in less than 24 hours. Like what, that might go up to 500,000, 600,000 on the ownership he was on before. I'll just tell you now, his ownership was...
He's just under 28% overall ownership.
Yeah, so I think if people didn't captain him with the current transfer rate, I love these transfer trades, I would expect him to be about 50, 60% EO, which is similar to like Almiron, Rashford.
Yeah.
If he gets captained by a lot of people, maybe he goes up to 70, but I don't see him flying up that quickly. And part of that will be the 0 pointer, and that people will see that and just be put off it, I think.
Yeah. And just for those of us, because that'll probably be me. I'm just not in a situation to get him. We'll just be hoping for a good old Mitrovic in that first one, so he misses that second one. I don't know what to say.
It's the hope that kills you. That's what I will say. But okay, we'll go to the captaincy metric. I just want to see if there's any other teams here. I think the likes of Brighton, who might get a double in 21, Everton, etc. I think we covered them on the next show. Once we actually see how they do in the cup and whether they do kind of end up with these doubles coming up shortly. I can't imagine many people looking to buy Everton and Brighton assets this week. Like they might be getting Patterson or Dunk or something, in a transfer from James or Cancelo to free up funds for an attacker. But generally speaking, I don't see much in their fixtures this week. Do you? Like Everton home to Brighton? Like
so. Those of us that I have Estupinian, right? Mm-hmm. And Estupinian is obviously away to Everton. In terms of starting, I have other, obviously Trippier you start every week. Like, do you start Estupinian away to Everton or White home to Newcastle?
Yeah, I think that's a tough call. Especially with that 59-minute sub, that does hurt with the two fullbacks coming off, doesn't it? 10 more seconds and he would have been the only clean sheet in that entire team.
What minute did he get subbed off in?
59 minutes, and like he walked off the pitch around 45 seconds.
Yeah, he got subbed off in the 60th. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like on all the apps it says
we
60,
want our jam. We
that.
want our fucking jam. Give it to us.
Yeah, but I've looked at it in previous years. I think they look at 60 minutes played or like 60 minutes on the pitch, which is frustrating, obviously. But it would have been nice.
And it also makes sense. Like it's fair enough.
It is a bit upsetting though, knowing that 15 seconds would have given us the only clean sheet in the Arsenal back line. I don't think many people had a Zinchenko who also got subbed around then, so that would have literally been the only clean sheet.
I had him in draft. That was fun.
Oh, no. Also 59 minutes. So painful for you in both FPL and draft. Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I think if people have Patterson as well, like here it's saying it's a minus 0.9 defensive FDR for, Everton. So
neutral.
Again, like it's neutral, but, Arsenal, Newcastle 1.7. So again, I'd be looking to play White in that fixture. I think for Brighton, it's a bit different though. They're obviously, I think it's only 0.2 defense, so it's not so bad. It's not negative, at least. It's still neutral. But again, I think White I like White. Estupinian does have upside though, so I do see him getting in the box and trying to take shots off. So he's an exciting pick, and if they get a double, you're going to enjoy playing him and watching him.
They're both likely to concede.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I might go Estupinian over White. I don't know. I think Newcastle can score more than Everton.
You might need White's points off the bench if Cancelo gets 0 minutes again. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing here that West Ham Leeds. I don't think anyone's buying assets there at the moment. Nah. And with the quick turnaround of the show, I think we'll look at the other teams next week, like the likes of Southampton, maybe Palace. I think there's some people with Zaha and Trossard out there. They're a bit probably frustrated by Trossard's 2 blanks and 2 price drops as their differential punt.
And that presents an opportunity if they have, with the doubles coming up, that could be a nice opportunity to get in on Trossard. So we will cover that before game.
That's the thing, because I imagine you might sell him for like a mount, and then they get a double game week announced in 21, and you want him back. So it's a tough call. It's really frustrating. We won't know anything until after the game week 19 deadline because the cup games won't have been played yet. All right, cool. So let's kind of go out of here. We've looked at zonals. I think the only other thing to add is that centrally for City, it's a 5.0 in this fixture. From 20 to 24 is 32.3, with the second highest being 23.7.
Exactly.
So Haaland just does feel inevitable. I'm going to go to the captaincy metric, and I'm honestly just waiting to see whether like one of the double game weekers somehow manages to squeeze in ahead of Haaland in number 1 or not. But we'll find out in a moment, won't we? So I just don't want to accidentally click on it. So I don't want to accidentally show the captain. This is the matchup summary. So for anyone listening on podcast as well, 1 hour 03, you can come here and see all the matchups specifically for this week alongside the zonals and the headed matchups. From a headed matchup point of view, Man United with 3.2 we've got here, and then I think it's Brighton with 3.1. They're kind of the two that stand out this week. Again, I don't really see any of the assets I'll be looking to buy from Brighton or United being the ones that would be on the end of those headers. Like I don't know if there's anything there that pushes you towards like keeping Martial with him being central? That will he get the chances, or you just not sold on him?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Cool.
You have 4 problems.
Yeah. All right, let's go to captaincy metric. All right. Interesting. A lot of people get in ahead of Haaland here, and I have not seen this till now because I wanted to be as surprised as you are. So Rashford is number 1 on 87 at home to Bournemouth with no double game week. Salah is number 2 with 82. Mitrovic is there on 78. Havertz 77. Darwin 77. Fernandes 74, and then Haaland 72. With the likes of Mount and Sterling and co not really even making it above 70. So that is interesting. I thought maybe someone will be above Haaland. I didn't think there'd be 5 players above him. Is there
crazy.
is there any immediate reactions there? Like,
I mean, when City need Haaland, he's playing, right? So when they don't need Haaland, it's probably because Haaland has already returned. So you've already got your return in. So I think Haaland, that like the minutes, he's listed at the 48th percentile. I think Haaland can be bumped up to like where Salah is, a 94, 95, even 100. He's gonna, if he's on the field, they need goals, and if he's not on the field, he's probably already scored goals. So I think bumping him up there would at least put him. He's at 72. Probably put him closer to Mitrovic. And then the other thing that's bringing Haaland down here is NetxG with the 30th percentile. And I think that is a function of the XG, that the expected goals on target that City have created in their last 6, and it hasn't been very high. And now they've faced a poor defense in Everton, and this is updated for that match, and they haven't done well on that, even though they still score. So that's dragging it down. So if you want to like say that that's an aberration and move that up some, then I think Haaland will be close to like within the top 4 of Rashford, Salah, Mitrovic. It is interesting that, I mean, Rashford comes in, he plays one half, and then he just bangs. I mean, his stats are going to be inflated from that one half from the less time that he's played, but you said it. He's a man on fire. He's possessed. He's getting lucky. He's in a position to get lucky.
Goals, right? Like that's what Ten Hag is asking of him. 20 Premier League goals in a season. He believes he's capable. And who am I to say no? This is making me very nervously twitch more towards a Foden to Rashford move and ignore the Chelsea double game week is in midfield. And the money I would get from a Foden to Rashford move would give me enough for Martial to Mitrovic. So I would still keep a United attacker for Bournemouth, and it would be the one I want long term. If I then get lucky and they get a double game week 20, fantastic. If I don't, shit, I've then got Rashford against City and Arsenal. But with this kind of form and these kind of captaincy metric numbers, he does seem a very big acquisition. In terms of transfers in this week as well, at the moment, he's got 185,000 transfers in, making him the 3rd highest transferred in player behind Mitrovic and Odegaard. So, yeah, I think this is the ultimate age-old debate. Do I go for the player regardless of the fixtures with the best form? Or do I get someone like Mount with 3 returns this season just because he has a double? And logic says I need to get Rashford. His ownership is only going to hurt me more and more.
I think you made... So my perspective on your situation is you made a mistake in going Martial over Rashford.
Yeah,
if you
that's
keep
where I
Martial to bring in Mount, you are trying to fix that mistake with another mistake.
Well, Mount here, for anyone who's on podcast, he's on 69 on the captaincy metric. It's the whole percentile that's really bringing him down with 2 percentile, which is pretty shit. Sterling is on 2 percentile for that as well. So, but he has 38 for returns, which is almost double the 19 for Mount. So I don't think either of them seem very appealing. But if price was no issue, then Sterling definitely. Again, I still think he's the better option.
But I mean, the top 2, right? I mean, you're going to go Rashford for the top 2, and Rashford and Mitrovic.
Oh, Mitrovic.
I mean, for you, the ones that fit your structure, right? It's Rashford and Mitrovic. That's who you have to bring in, right?
Havertz would be again an exciting pump, but it's like it screams a bit like Werner last year for the Chelsea double game week when I spoke to FPL Harry, who's a Chelsea fan, and he was just like, "What are you thinking? Like, don't do this." And thank
I
God I listened.
I don't know. I question Mariner's integrity by including Havertz in this in the metric. I
He
bet
knows you
you
don't
he
want to
just
talk about him.
I bet he just typed in Havertz. That's somebody else. That's like that's probably like Martial or someone, and he just
I made sure
typed in
Havertz was on
Havertz
the thumbnail as well here, just to
just to
get you from
troll me.
both. There was it the two-pronged attack. So Podden is saying just a question about Rashford scored 1 goal last week and bangs. Hadn't scored 1 goal last week, but doesn't bang. Confused. So I think just is it the whole percentages you're looking at, Podner, or what are you looking at here? Because Holland's whole percentages, he's 96th percentile. Rashford is 83rd. So I don't think it's just for that one game. It's more just what Rashford's been doing.
It's the last
last six. Yeah, it's the last six, isn't it? So that will include the 14-pointer against Forest the week before, the 8-pointer against West Ham. I think I'm looking at Rashford now. He has 3 double-digit returns, 14, 18, and 10. Obviously, like in the last 6, he's still not necessarily hauling as much as Holland, but
Holland has 2 double-digit returns in the last 6. Rashford has 1 double-digit return in the last 6. So that's why you'll see Holland as far as his haul potential higher than Rashford's. But in terms of returns, what does the return say? 90 for
75
Holland
and 90.
75.
Yeah, it's a big difference there.
Yeah, because Rashford has 3 blanks in the last 6.
Yeah, and I think also the NetxG here would have pushed Rashford very high, Podness, obviously with 95 versus just 30 for Holland, as we explained. But if you don't think that that's accurate, then you would still back City in this, I think. In terms of captaincy, then let me be very upfront. Like, who are you captaining? My bus team is on Haaland right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't own Mitrovic yet, but he is. That 4th yellow card, it really kind of... I think if that 4th yellow card wasn't there, I'd be much more tempted by Mitrovic. I won't be captaining Rashford or Salah or Darwin or any of these guys here, but I think it's Mitrovic or Haaland for me. I think that's what it comes down to. Let us know in the chat what you guys are thinking.
I'm on Haaland. I don't have Mitrovic. My only way to Mitrovic would be selling Cancelo de Bueno.
It was a lot more exciting when it was Botman, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was more,
before you got priced out.
Before I got priced out, that was definitely much better. But even in that situation, it would put me in a 3-5-3. So I'd have to bench one of Almiron and Nketiah. One of Almiron or Nketiah would be benched every week.
Yeah,
that's not
painful.
ideal. Yeah, so
you could take a -4. You could downgrade someone to Andreas while you're at it and get another double game week if you don't have him.
But that's the thing. Do you downgrade? Do you sell Almiron for Andreas? Do you sell Rashford for Andreas? Like what?
I've seen people talking about selling Rashford to Andreas. I think what this has shown me is that is not a move I would be looking to make. Definitely
not. I have all my 5 midfielders. I love, and I think this is the problem in kind of moving funds around, is that there are so many good midfielders. I mean, I have Martinelli, Almiron, Salah, De Bruyne, and Rashford. I could sell De Bruyne. I could go De Bruyne to Sterling.
Yeah, that could be your like double game week punt. Yeah,
and then bench Almiron and buy Mitrovic, for example. That would give me 2 extra double game week players. And
so I was originally benching Almiron to play Andreas, but as it stands, I'm playing Almiron and benching Foden because I've not decided to sell him yet. So it's kind of like there is a world in which I just keep Foden on the bench and I get Martial to Mitrovic and use James to get the extra 0.3 I need by going for someone like a Shaw, or if I want to be really spicy, getting a Chelsea defender anyway, despite everything we said this show, and going against all my beliefs and eye test and stats.
Well, I mean, those are our dilemmas. Let's see what our listeners and our haulers have for us.
Cool. So I've got a few starred. I think I'll ask. There's only 2 or 3 in the Discord, so I'll quickly do those first from the YouTube members. So we have first one from Dom Black Dragon. So his is Rashford now a must-have in midfield? game week or 19-20 onwards, should we hold on to Nunes or should we spread the cash in midfield, e.g. Rashford? So he's looking at, does he downgrade Darwin and use that money to get maybe into a 3-5-2 like you were saying, and actually having like a Rashford as a fifth mid? I think what we've said is that like is hard to know before Game Week 19 deadline because we won't know about United getting that double in 2021 or 22. If I knew for certain they had it, I would probably move for Rashford now with that Bournemouth home game. I would just go for him over the likes of Mount, Pulisic, Havertz. Like, it just seems like a better long-term transfer there. If they don't have a double game week and you don't feel like you want to make that move yet till you know, it is City and Arsenal the next two after Bournemouth. So you could wait. But I definitely think, from now till game week 38, Rashford's a midfielder I want to have for the majority of that. It's just timing when I come in and trying not to come in at the time when he's then got two tough fixtures and no double potentially. That's the difficulty here.
Yeah. But knowing that you're getting a player in form with a team that's growing into their own identity, and he's becoming kind of the talisman of the team, at least from a goal scoring perspective. So bringing Rashford in is not a bad idea.
Yep, cool. And then just his last question, I guess, in terms of Darwin and maybe selling him in game week 19 or 20, and what's the best Darwin replacement? So I think that goes hand in hand with Jonathan Daddybot's question, which is Mitrovic in his double a trap? Because my answer to the best Darwin replacement would be Mitrovic this week, but I don't really want to sell Darwin. It's actually Martial I want to sell. So it depends. I think if you don't own Salah, I do like Darwin at that price point, almost 4 million cheaper, and still having that Liverpool attacker. When I looked at the kind of, I think it was the Opta odds, they have odds for like the top 4, top 6 relegation. Liverpool have by far the highest percentage for coming third still, despite where they sit in the table right now. And it's just because they score so many goals, right? I'm not saying we need to go and get a Liverpool defender. I'm not saying go get Robbo and Trent right now. But I would not want to be having neither Darwin or Salah for the coming week. So if you're someone who doesn't have Salah, doesn't intend on having him, I like the idea of just keeping hold of Darwin, at least for the shorter term, and waiting to see what happens. What are your thoughts? Would you sell Darwin in 19 or 20?
I'd try not to sell Darwin in 19. I would sell him in 20 easily. Darwin was a mistake, I think.
Yeah, I've not too much enjoyed him myself. Okay, so let's go to the live chat questions. So we have okay, so we got Carl Valencia here on the first one. So tough game week to analyze. I've got Kepa and Andreas. I was thinking Martial to Havertz, but I'm put off that. I don't like Mitro on 4 yellows, and doesn't want to get him just as a shield potentially. So I think in that scenario, something we've not discussed as well, which is really important, is that the cup game is in between the double fixtures. So Chelsea will have to play, I think, is Man City in the cup. Is it Man City they play?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to play them on next weekend between the fixture that they have. So it's like, I don't know, that's not that great. They're going to play City twice.
It feels like chaos. It's just chaos.
Yeah, so like I'd be concerned with the way we talked about Potter and rotation. Like, there's no guarantee that you're going to get 2 games out of whichever one you go for. Mount seems the most assured, but he's in a different position. Martial against Bournemouth isn't the end of the world, but in his position, I would still be going for Mitrovic over Havertz personally. What are your thoughts? And get that third attacker.
I don't think Havertz is an option, to be blunt.
Cool. So Device Soani, best Foden replacement. So I think we've talked about this quite a lot because that's obviously one of my dilemmas. Do I keep him? Do I sell him? He started like 1 in the last 6. I took a punt. I hoped he might play. It's not quite worked out how I thought. Do I sell him? Well, away to Chelsea, if there's a week to sell him and get in on double game weeks, or to get to someone like Rashford if you don't already own them, or Andreas if you don't have him, I think for me, it's in that order. It's kind of like get Rashford long term or get Andreas if you don't have him. Mount is probably third in my list in terms of priority. He'd be much more a punt territory. I don't think he's a long-term Foden replacement. It would just be for the double, really. What about you? Would you put anyone ahead of Rashford and Andreas for a Foden replacement?
No, I think Rashford and Andreas are your 2 selections there. I'd put Almiron up there if you don't have him yet. Yeah. But not necessarily this week, of course. But yeah, that's where I would look.
Cool. Couple quick ones. Neil Reynolds just here from the SKLW tournament, Fontaine of Knowledge. He's here to represent. I believe. Did they face Neto that Holland this week in the tournament?
I think so. There was a notification on Twitter that Henri, but I guess we lost because otherwise they wouldn't
saw
be
you guys were
notifying
2-1
us.
down. Yeah, you were 2-1 down when I last checked. So it sounds like you didn't claw that back in the final fixture.
Doesn't look like it. They wouldn't be reaching out.
Just to address Debanjan's comment, he was asking about if we could maybe start earlier with the pod and then do the shout outs in the middle. Some people in the chat said they don't think it's an issue. Let us know what your feedback is. We could always do it in the middle of the show or just before the captaincy metric, but we definitely want to make sure every episode we shout out the supporters who helped make this happen. So, Alex
and actually, one of the reasons why it's nice to do it at the beginning is because at the beginning of when I listen to, sometimes I'll listen to it on a podcast, and you can do the forward 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not you can click it at the beginning and get into the pod, and then there's no more promo or anything like that, and just get through the entire show. Whereas if you do it in the middle, then you have to stop. You have to, if you're walking the dog or whatever, you have to do the fucking thing. And so it's also for convenience. But if that's not what the haulers want, we can do whatever. It's the same process.
Exactly. So let us know. And we do timestamp it. So I think the majority listen afterwards, and they probably just skip on the timestamp to go to the section they're interested in. Obviously, for live viewers, they can't really skip it. But I'd hope that live viewers enjoy the interaction and the chatting to each other back and forth. So Alex Meacher, that Chelsea game has made me more certain on captaining Haaland. I think Pep was resting Cancelo, Foden, Bernardo for these tough games. That's part of the reason I want to hold on to Cancelo and see what happens. And I'm now leaning more towards the idea that if I don't go to Rashford, I don't think I'll be doing Foden to Mount. I think I'll just bench Foden and play Almiron and see what happens with Foden, get a cup game and another Premier League game of data in my mind about what's happened here. Has he been going out with Jack Grealish again? And is he in the naughty books, or what is going on? But
and you have viable good substitutes for him, so it's not an urgency.
I guess playing a 60% owned Almiron to shield myself isn't the worst thing to do this week.
Exactly.
It's I'll get Mount and then he'll get 4 points, and then Almiron will outscore him on my bench anyway. Andy Martin, thanks for tuning in, mate. He got 69 points this week, one of the highest scores in most of his mini leagues. That is a very good score.
It's actually very nice.
Yeah. Let us know if you got any bench jam to go along with it, or if you're more of a whipped cream kind of guy. So Daddy Bot, if you have Mount, is he worth keeping? I would not be said. I would definitely keep him. I think minutes wise for the double, he's the most assured. I would hold on to him. Daddy Bot as well. Does it make sense to go James to Botman if they're both on your bench? Yes, if you need dollars, better to wait for more double game week info. So this is where I was at, right? I could sell Foden and Martial and just keep James another week. And if United get double 20, then do James to Shaw. I don't really want to get a United defender with that long-term FTR we saw without a double. So I feel like I missed the boat in those first two fixtures for sure. Botman's great. My only comment there would be if you're looking at potentially getting someone like Wilson in the future, and you've already got the likes of Almiron and Trippier, obviously that will block that future move. So just have a think of the best use of your Newcastle slots, and are you likely to want to have two attackers from there? If you're not, then I think Botman is a fantastic option, and he's a great person to have as first bench.
Yeah.
Colin Bugler. So I'm looking at going a touch rogue and getting rid of Kane for Watkins, and then swapping Watkins out for Mitrovic in 23. I'm bored of being stuck around 400k. I think that is a very bold move. Obviously, we don't know if Kane's double is 100%. If there's a replay needed in either Spurs or City's game, cup game, then there won't be a double game week 20 for City or Chelsea. So not Chelsea, City or Spurs. What do you think of Spurs? Conte's quotes today were a bit alarming, if I say so myself. And I promise it's not just coming from an Arsenal point of view. So his exact words were, so he basically said that he did a miracle last season to come fourth. That was where he started. He says he describes last season's top four finish as a miracle. I remember in the summer, many people talked about Tottenham as title contenders. From my experience, it was a little bit crazy. I want to be honest. I want to be very clear. I have said this to the club. I have said my opinions. The fans deserve the best. Maybe to stay in fifth is the best. Maybe sixth, maybe seventh. Fifth or fourth is the best. So he said all of this. And they're just basically like, yeah, like he just, they got 13 points in the last 10 league games. So 13 points out of 30. They've gone from a point off first place in that time to 2 points off fourth. In that period, they've registered one more shot than their opponents and half an XG less from open play. I think the narratives have said they are a second half team. They don't really seem to play until the second half or when they go behind. I think they've gone behind the last 9 games in a row. Like, it doesn't look very good, does it? Like if you're only holding Kane for a double game week that's against potentially City and Chelsea, do you not just get rid now? Like,
no, I think you've made your bed with it. You're going to get rid now after you've got nothing. You're going to get rid before the main reason you started with Kane was for that double, and now that you've got nothing, you're going to get rid of him before that main reason even happens.
It's not like the Darwin owners got much more, right? Because I think people who went Kane probably didn't have Darwin. So it's not like you're that far behind.
Yeah, you're not that far behind. You got the double coming up. He's still the talisman, and Conte's right. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, like a 5th, 6th, 7th place team right now. That's how they're playing. They've been playing like that for quite some time. So I don't know. I don't see his remarks as controversial. I just see them as realistic and obviously not where they want to be, right? So but yeah, you have to hang on to Kane. But what I will say, Colm, is I love the Watkins show. Watkins is on fire. His form is fantastic. He looks really good. He's looked really good under Unai Emery, to be fair. So I think Emery really likes him.
Their next 4 fixtures are fantastic as well, right? Like, they've got really good fixtures. I'm just going to put this up on the screen from an FDR point of view as well. The FDR says it's only 0.0 for attack from 20 to 25, but I think that it's harshly, obviously, hammering them for the last 6. But they look much better since the restart. I think Emery's had an extra 6 weeks to, get to know that squad and figure out how to get the best out of them personally.
I mean, NetxG has Villa gives them the same number as Liverpool away to Brentford.
It's one of the highest. It's one of the highest NetxGs of the week. Yeah, you got United 1.85 and then Villa at 1.8 for this week. So I think that's pretty good. Spurs attacking comparison on NetxG is 1.57 this week. And then actually going forwards is it says it's 7.9 for 20 to 25. So Kane's fixtures are great afterwards, but I think if you are going to go somewhere, Watkins is an exciting punt if you're willing to go against Mitrovic or you don't already have him. Some of these questions we've already covered. So I think Rokogu, I think we covered the Cancelo question when you first brought it up. We got some jokes as well from Combe about can Mitrovic get a second yellow in added time against Leicester, but just to say the yellows and suspensions don't carry into the cup anymore to prevent players doing that. So he would be banned in the second fixture in the double game week. Blue Danube Joe, I don't know who to bench out of Martinelli and Martial for Andreas for the coming game week. That is a tough call. I think it would be Martial from the X minutes point of view for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Prince Ohakwe, let us know if I'm pronouncing that right. He says he misses the little side notes on key players next to the zonal matches and whether that's something we might add back. So we'll give that feedback back to Mariner and see if that's something we can pull out into the next episode. Combe thinks Fulham might lose against Leicester because they look quite tired against Southampton with a quick turnaround. That's a fair point. We all just kind of think they're going to walk all over them because Leicester looked so bad in the first game back, but I'm not sure it's going to be that easy. The Premier League's very difficult these days. There is, like Fulham themselves, they create so much. I still think they will score. It's just how solid they will be defensively. And on that note,
but we did shout the Willian assist. We called that on the last show.
You shouted the Willian assist in the matchups, didn't you? Yeah. So that was a nice one to get. And this relates to FPLSP's question of if I need to get a defender on the 5.4, should I go Shaw or Fulham defense? I definitely don't think I'd be going Fulham defense for the double personally. I really like Shaw if you've got cover and can bench him in the bad fixtures should they not get a double. Let's answer Devi's question. Thank you for the super chat, I think, or super thanks. So who would be your free picks from City? If we assume Haaland is one, who are the other two?
I mean, I'm hoping to have Haaland, De Bruyne, and Julian Alvarez. So that's who will be my 3 City picks, assuming things go the way I hope them to go, I guess.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think for me, I would still at this point in time have Cancelo in there until I can see that he is definitely not the first choice or not going to be playing. So that's why I'm keeping him for one more week of data. So it would be Haaland, Cancelo, and Alvarez for me as well if I can get there. Um, I just honestly think that he's a player that Pep has spoken about before, just to wrap this up. And he has said that, he doesn't think there's a problem playing him and Haaland together. We saw him force out Lautaro Martinez from the team in the World Cup as well, after the first fixture or two, and he had a great tournament. So I'm really excited by him. And I can't imagine a World Cup winner will be content just sitting on the bench every week. Like, he's going to do something in training to force his way into thinking. So yeah, I'm really excited by him. I think the only question was William Frick's question we've not answered. So we'll just quickly answer this and then we'll get out at 1 hour 30. So he said, is the Villa defense the way to go for those looking to replace James? I don't want the Chelsea and double defense investment with Kepa. This is something I've seen people talking about our good old friend Lucas Dean. I think if you're not too convinced by going for a United defender and you already have like your bench fodder and you don't want Botman because you might get Wilson in the future, for example, then I don't see anything personally wrong with like a 4-week punt on a Villa defender, but they will probably frustrate you. I think they will frustrate you. But again, last few seasons we've all been very attracted by these attacking fullbacks like Lucas Dean and others, and this season they've just not really done much.
Yeah, and that's not. I mean, I don't know that Emery will give them that kind of license to get forward. I think he'll play that standard 4-4-2 and get production elsewhere. So I don't see them. I don't even look at Dean playing as a traditional wingback under Emery. So I wouldn't go there. The fixtures, I guess, suggest some kind of clean sheet potential, but I think there are better options.
Yeah, I still think I would rank the likes of, say, Botman, and what we were saying, Shaw and stuff. If you don't have an Arsenal defender, like
Brighton defenders with their upcoming doubles and stuff like that, I would go there.
I think that would be quite exciting. Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you everyone for tuning in live on New Year's Day. Happy New Year's to all of you. May your arrows be green. Hopefully you don't have too much to deliberate on before the deadline, and try to do your transfers before having a drink. As my glass of water here says, don't drink an FPL. It never ends well. So with that out the way, good luck in this game week, guys. Do tweet us if you have any final questions on the Net That Hall account, and we'll monitor that before the deadline if we've missed anything today. But I think we've covered everything. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely New Year's with your families, and may this be a great 2023 for all of you.
Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.